Good afternoon to all of you who are in Mongolia and Korea and other parts of Asia, and good morning to all of us who are here in Europe. I'm delighted actually to welcome everyone here today to attend ODI's online event on sustainable economic recovery in Mongolia, challenges and opportunities. So without further ado, let me introduce our keynote speaker for today's event, His Excellency Amasaikhon Sayunbuyon, the Deputy Prime Minister of Mongolia. Mr. Amasaikhon was appointed Deputy Prime Minister of Mongolia in 2021, but he has a number of other roles as well. He's a very busy man, it seems. He's head of the State Emergency Commission. He co-heads the Mongolia European Union Cooperation Committee, the Chamber of Commerce and Investment between Mongolia and the United States, and roundtables with countries including Britain and Canada. So we're very lucky to have a little bit of his time today, given his wide range of roles.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Your Excellency, let me ask you to take the floor.
Well, first, I would like to express my gratitude to the Overseas Development Institute and the chair of its board, Sir Suma Chakrabarti, for arranging today's online launch event and giving me a floor to talk about the new recovery policy pursued by the government of Mongolia. So like you mentioned, this launch event is being held in a rather critical time, and I certainly agree with you. So during the past 2 years of COVID-19 pandemic, like any other countries, Mongolia made great strides in saving lives and the rescuing livelihoods of households. Financial institutions such as the World Bank and International Monetary Fund and Asian Development Bank reported that Mongolia's post-pandemic recovery is gaining momentum. And we're quite optimistic and positive about that. A sharp uptick in our 2022 GDP reflects 4% growth, which we are expecting to continue in the upcoming years. The launching of an underground operation at the Oyu Tolgoi copper mine is, this month gives us a reason for such good and high expectations too. I could mention the Mongolian government unveiled the new recovery policy in December 2020. The initial 10-year phase of our long-term development policy, known as Vision 2050. So the new recovery policy represents almost 150 trillion or 49 billion US dollars in investment opportunity and aims to create a vibrant economy. So with the new recovery policy, we have highlighted 6 areas in the Mongolian economy, including bottlenecks at the border crossings. As a result, we're working to increase our border ports capacity 3 times and total export capacity by 20 billion USD by 2030. So in the past 3 years, we have built nearly 1,000 kilometers of long railways on our own resource and investment, which would increase our export capacity 2 to 3-fold in the next 3 years. So our energy infrastructure are mostly relying on coal, as you already know. So therefore, Mongolia is committed to shifting to low carbon solutions like solar, wind, and hydrogen. We're planning to build 2 new hydroelectric dams by 2030. So by the 2030, we will provide 30% of our energy demand with renewable energy resource. And we have this potential, and it could be even more. So we are working on to widening our energy resource and transmission distribution grids and networks.
Mongolia has several policies to support medium and long-term development, which include the Vision 2050 that was adopted in 2020, but also the new recovery policy that was that aims to double the GDP per capita by 2030. The new recovery policy aligns with the first stage of Vision 2050 and goes up to 2030, and it aims to support the country's recovery and lay the groundwork for further growth by addressing 6 key economic constraints. These include trade ports, energy industrialization, urban and rural development, green development, and efficient governance. The reform package combines both key infrastructure initiatives and public-private partnerships, as well as partial privatization of enterprises. While the new recovery policy itself does not contain projects, the implementation plan of the new recovery policy accelerator does contain 94 key investment projects to date that cover the key priority areas. These are heavily concentrated in port and energy revival with 43 and 21 projects respectively, and are followed by industrial revival with 15 projects, urban and rural development with 7 projects, green growth with 5 projects, and public sector efficiency where there are 7 projects. When it comes to green development, I think a number of people, we have already mentioned that green development is part of the government's medium and long-term vision. And even the earlier green development policy has emphasized the need to shift from growth first and clean it up later model to one that's more environmentally sustainable and inclusive. Why does the country need to pursue green development as part of its recovery policy? Well, the new recovery policy highlights several environmental and climate challenges that are facing the country as it pursues recovery. These include above 2 degrees warming in average temperatures in the last 80 years, high levels of desertification and land degradation, but also high share of total water, surface water as total water resources, which makes the country vulnerable to water stress. In terms of sectoral opportunities, Mongolia has huge untapped renewable energy potential that's assessed at 2.6 terawatts of both solar and wind power. And the country has already launched several projects in the last decade to capitalize on that potential, with new solar projects to be added under the new recovery policy.
To widening our new energy resource transmission and distribution networks and grids. Also, while aiming to maintain our relations with our immediate 2 neighbors, we continue to seek to explore new markets with tourism and trade of agricultural-based business, which is based on value-added like products and services, goods and commodities, natural resource. Our government is taking several actions to attract foreign direct investment by denationalizing state-owned companies and banks that need investment, skilled management, and marketing of their products need to be promoted. One of them is that our government launched a 5-point campaign to fight corruption. We would like to see our current corruption index become 2-digit through a comprehensive campaign of encouraging like whistleblowers, which has 6 components: mopping off and calling corrupted officials to justice, and repatriation of fugitives, and transparency in governance. Efficient and sound governance is our priority. And by removing red tape, corruption, and abuse of power is vital for our government. So by fulfilling them, Mongolia will become more attractive destination for foreign direct investment, and we will have more internationally accepted standard and legal and business environments. That's what we are expecting. So, for example, the Southwest will become a center of wind energy and green development. There is huge natural potential there. The Southeast will focus on wildlife protection and also like a plantological hub. So the north will become a manufacturing hub with suburbs of Ulaanbaatar city will be turned into modern business parks with improved public transport system and decentralize the current population of the capital city by implementing new public transportation systems, constructing bypassing highways and railways, and also constructing two modern cities. It is also underway. The parliament, the government have already approved the decision, and the master plans are on the way. And bypassing highways will be connecting Eurasian markets like China and Russian borders will be connected. So we will have more access international routes to encourage our economy. So this will improve also our urban development and will bring more wealth across our country and region. There is an inadequate industrial and trade infrastructure due to a lack of investment and infrastructure opportunities in rural areas that will still need to pay attention. So our Billion Tree Initiative will replant 600,000 hectares of land and will prevent soil erosion and ensure improved carbon storage. We will upgrade the capacity of the current infrastructure, protect elevated and arid land, and plant trees against the land degradation and caused by city and also desertification to reduce the climate change and also commit and contribute ourselves. Last but not least, it is disaster risk reduction. It is becoming more serious and more important, including increasing public awareness and improving the early warning system at national, regional, and local levels, which could help avoid the loss of resource we have that could be used for sustainable growth in the future. So that's what our government is aiming. And these are the main issues our government is focusing within the new recovery policy.
Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, Deputy Prime Minister Amr Sakhan. Thank you to ODF for organizing this online event. It is indeed a timely engagement on Mongolia's journey to sustainable economic recovery. As we further see the developments and implementation of Mongolia's new recovery policy after its launch in the end of 2021. In characterizing what environmental and sustainable economic growth means in Mongolia, allow me to filter it through the lens of the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. And doing so, let me highlight key elements of Mongolia's United Nations Sustainable Development Framework, or UNSDCF, to draw out not only the different dimensions of an environmentally sustainable economic growth, but also to put in perspective how Mongolia is progressing to achieve this envisaged kind of growth. For additional context, this framework embodies the joint strategic planning framework for collaboration between the United Nations and the government of Mongolia in the next 5 years until 2027, and is closely aligned with the National Development Agenda as articulated in Mongolia's Vision 2050. An environmentally sustainable economic growth seeks to balance development outcomes between shared prosperity and what is good for the planet. Set against Mongolia's circumstances, in terms of shared prosperity, it is an economic growth that is more diversified across economic sectors, geographically balanced and innovative. In addition, it is an economic growth that creates not only productive employment, but also addresses inclusivity, creating more decent jobs and opportunities that enhance employability of marginalized groups. In relation to the planet, in Mongolia, it is an economic growth that follows low carbon pathways and it's resource efficient, where the socioeconomic benefits of resource use, both on consumption and production patterns, are maximized while minimizing the impacts. Also, it is an economic growth that strengthens resilience through addressing climate change and disaster risks. With such a description of what an environmentally sustainable economic growth means in Mongolia, undoubtedly we recognize the different development challenges and issues that need to be considered. While it is true that Mongolia was among the first countries to adopt the 2030 agenda, with the Parliament of Mongolia approval of the country's long-term strategic sustainable development vision 2030 in February 2016, Mongolia's progress in achieving the SDGs has been quite challenging. According to the Sustainable Development Report 2022, the overall SDG index for Mongolia is 63.5, ranked 119th out of 163 countries. And this is below the East and Southeast Asia regional average. Since 2015, the country has made progress on many SDGs, such as poverty reduction and quality education, while also moderately improving in gender equality, health, decent work, clean energy, and infrastructure.
Well, you've been to the site and you already know how huge this project is. So the Oyu Tolgoi, this mine perfectly fits into Mongolia's new recovery policy. The government of Mongolia attaches great importance to its strategic partnership with Rio Tinto. The recently resolved long-standing issue between the two parties shows how both sides are committed to this project. So we assume and see this project is a structure that forms an important structure and an important example that forms a core part of transforming and modernizing and expanding our industries. And this could be a great example for many other similar projects and different projects in different sectors. It is the largest third neighbor foreign direct investment project and has one of the biggest resources for our economic sustainable growth of our economy. And Oyu Tolgoi continues to boost the state budget and by ensuring that the government can reinvest this for the betterment of the Mongolian citizens, especially focusing on to build middle class. This is a very important contribution and very significant commitment by the joint cooperation. So currently Oyu Tolgoi's workforce consists of almost 97% consists of Mongolian, and there are almost 20,000 workers. All of them are skilled and fits into their job requirement. And 1/5 is female, which matches perfectly to the government's drive for more gender equality across the nation and across the industry. And there, like Ms. Hargit mentioned, there's a lot of raised out important issues and questions, especially supporting and encouraging SMEs. Currently, there are over 500 suppliers and SMEs supplying products and services and things like that. So back in 2022, Oyu Tolgoi produced close to 130,000 tons of copper concentrate and 183,000 ounces of gold in concentrate. And by the 2030, Oyu Tolgoi is expected to become the fourth largest copper producer in the world, producing almost 500,000 tons of copper per year. So, and then in addition, Rio's purchase of this Turkish hill and also means that the project is moving forward with simpler and more efficient ownership and governance. And our Prime Minister recently attended the opening ceremony of the undercutting and undermining, which will be, operating smoothly as we expect. Yeah.
We've got just 5 minutes left. I'm going to put two questions, I think, in one go to the Deputy Prime Minister. One of the questions in the chat we have is about agriculture. What should the country be trying to do in terms of exporting high quality animal products? That's one question I'd like you just to think about and say something about. And the second one is more on the financial side. What are the plans for a sovereign wealth fund and how to take that forward in Mongolia as well? And then I'll come back to all the panelists for a quick fire last question each. DPM, you'll need to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you for your question. What we need to do to support and develop our agricultural sector is to first adopt new and advanced technologies and improve our work skill of the people and experts in this sector, and support them with soft financing and flexible funding. So those are the three things to support them efficiently. That's the key three issues. And of course, there are many other things need to be solved, including having better legal and investment environment. But we do have very strong platform here and all the resource here with vast territory and natural resource, including this, whether it's fertilizers or fodder or hay or everything can be grown here, including the vegetables for export. Number two, the question was
Sovereign Wealth Fund question.
Yes, Sovereign Wealth Fund. We have this. Our government actually been working on the draft law for the last 2.5 years, since its establishment back in 21. And we have our draft of new law of foreign sovereign funds ready in our hand. And we have everything set to be submitted to the parliament, and hopefully we will have it reviewed by the parliament during the spring session and approved. And at the same time, we are working to improve the efficiency of the state-owned corporations and mining companies like Erdnas Mongol or ETT or OT Mongolia. So those are being settled at the same time to have right structure on one side and have the better legal environment on the other side. And combining these two, we will be able to realize our ambition and goal to implement.
Now, panelists, we have precisely 2 minutes left, and I'd like you all to be extremely brief. And I'm going to ask all of you, I'll come to the Deputy Prime Minister last, I'll start with Mandul, then Bolorma, and then Ganbold, and then I'm going to ask Olena and Elvira as well, and then the Deputy Prime Minister. What's your top hope for 2023 in Mongolia for this year? What's the most important thing you can think Mongolia should be doing? Mandul.
I think on the back of a strong economic rebound and successful exit from COVID, I think 2023 would be the turning point for Mongolia in terms of economic development. And I would say that we are back in business.
Great, good answer. Thank you, Bolorma.
Great. I think 23 is going to be continued recovery. New recovery policy is going to be second year in implementation. EBRD's forecast is economic growth of about 7%. And EBRD was actually most on the point on for last year's growth. So I'm going to trust those numbers for 23. The government's continued work against corruption, middle class is going to be a key part of the new recovery as well for 23.
Great, thanks, Bolorma. Ganbold.
Yeah, absolutely. The year 2023 is yet another year of opportunities for Mongolia. For more importantly, together with the rest of the world, the year marks the midpoint of the journey to achieving the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development. And Mongolia is marking this milestone year by undergoing its second voluntary national review, having done the first in 2019. With this review, Mongolia is presented with the opportunity to assess its experiences, including successes, challenges, and lessons learned, and seek ways to strengthen policies and institutions of governments, and to mobilize multi-stakeholder support and partnerships for the implementation of sustainable development goals. From our side, at the United Nations, we have always reiterated our readiness as Mongolia's trusted partner in achieving the SDGs. Thank you, Suri.
Thank you very much, Ganbold. Well, Elvira and Olena, what's you hoping for in 2023 for Mongolia?
Thank you so much. Given the launch of Oyu Gold mine in Mongolia, I really hope that Mongolia utilizes this opportunity to strengthen its resilience, to increase self-sufficiency, and to reduce imports. Also, it is very important that Mongolia supports its population against inflation, and the consumption is also very resilient in the country.
Thanks very much. Olena?
Oh, thank you, Suma. I think from my side, I really hope that there is a big push forward on the renewable energy. It's a priority for the government, it's a priority for the development banks, both EBRD, ADB, but also others working in the country, and it will also help to support Mongolia's industrialization and other objectives, as well as its climate ambitions.
Okay. Thanks, Olena and Elvira. Thank you very much. And so, Deputy Prime Minister, what do you hope for in 2023? You've got so much on your plate.
Well, the strong effort and commitment of our government have ensured that 2022, our GDP grew by 4%, when many analysts forecasted the growth of just over 2%. But the GDP growth in the first quarter of 2023 was 10.2%, which put us back on track. And we really hope that this will continue. And we really hope that our economic growth will bring better living standards for our people in 2023. And we will continue to work and fight day and night for stronger and stronger economic growth by implementing the new recovery policies, so that our future prosperity is shared by all the people nationwide. So perhaps the most exciting prospect for Mongolia in 2023 lies within also tourism, because we have announced that the 2023 to 2025 will be the years to visit Mongolia, and we aim to increase our tourists up to 1 million in this year. So there are many optimistic forecasts and goals. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Prime Minister. Well, I hope we at ODI can be more than tourists. We will continue to engage with you, but we'll also enjoy the country as well when we come to visit as well and to work there. But I think you're absolutely right to stress the centrality of economic growth. That's absolutely right. Thank you for that. So we've come to the end of today's event, but let me just pull out 3 or 4 key points from the discussions we've heard today. First of all, I think diversification and industrialization are key for Mongolia to affect that sustainable economic recovery in the long term. You know, you have the R in NRP. It may stand for recovery, but another key word that we've been hearing throughout the discussion today is resilience as well. And building resilience to future shocks, I think, is of course at the core of Mongolia's NRP and Vision 2050. And I'm heartened from what I heard today about the work that's underway to build a stronger and more diverse economy. Second, we heard also how critical Mongolia's economic recovery and growth, the measures to support its green development agenda. And we've heard very promising signs from all the speakers about how that's going to take place. And I'm really encouraged by that as well. And third, you know, I think we've been talking about Mongolia today, and I mentioned that I started my career in Botswana, and some similar issues about, you know, economies that are reliant on natural resources. What do you do in this situation? And particularly those economies have been particularly badly affected by events in recent years. It's great to hear Mongolia is on the recovery path and actually is doing better than the forecasts, actually, which is good news. But I think the direction that Mongolia's economic recovery takes is going to have a wider impact on emerging markets, on other natural resource dominated economies in the region, but also beyond the region, actually. And because they all need to adapt. And I think it's always been interesting for me how Mongolia has always thought about this and focused on this. And I think you will be a benchmark for other countries in this respect. Fourth and last, but not the least, you know, we're all very good in the ODI or in the Mongolian authorities, government, and or in many countries at thinking about the strategy. We know what we need to do. We just need to do it. And implementation is crucial. And we all know this is where everything, when the rubber hits the road, as they say, that's what it really matters. So we need to implement. And that's really important for Mongolia too. So let me thank our speakers for taking the time to be with us today. Thank my colleagues at ODI for hosting us. And finally, a warm thank you to all the participants, over 50 of you who joined us today. I hope that you continue these conversations and that today's event is frankly the start of more fruitful discussions on Mongolia's economic recovery. We at ODI, Deputy Prime Minister and colleagues, we at ODI will remain engaged with Mongolia. I would personally love to be more closely engaged with you. I think the country deserves all our support. It is a beacon of both democratic and economic development. And I really wish you well in the future and what you're trying to do. Thank you all very, very much for attending.